Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Harakah, Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. And shalom to the hopeful elect. This is Paya Allah. And this is biblical commentary of the book of Acts, the 27th chapter, which reads, "And when it was determined that we should sail into Italy, they delivered Paul and certain other prisoners unto one named Julius, a centurion of the Augustus band, and entering into a ship of Adramyttium, we launched, meaning to sail by the coast of Asia, one Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, but being with us. And the next day we touched at Sidon, and Julius courteously entreated Paul and gave him liberty to go into his friends to refresh himself. And when we had launched from thence, we sailed under Cyprus because the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed over the sea of Cilicia and Pamphylia, and we came to Myra, a city of Lycia. And there the centurion found a ship of Alexandria sailing into Italy, and he put us therein. And when we had sailed slowly many days, and scarce were come over against Cnidus, the wind not suffering us, we sailed under Crete against Salome. And hardly passing it, came unto a place which is called the Fair Havens, nigh whereunto the city of Lasea, whereunto was the city of Lasea. Now when much time was spent, and when sailing was now dangerous, because the fast was now already past, Paul admonished them, and said unto them, Sirs, I perceive that this voyage will be with hurt and much damage. Not only of landing and ship, but also of our lives. Nevertheless, the centurion believed the master of the owner of the ship more than those things which were spoken by Paul. And because there was not commodious to winter in, the more part advised to depart thence also, if by any means they might attain to Phoenice, and there to winter, which is a haven of Crete, and live toward the southwest and northwest. So basically, they didn't want to stay there for the winter because it was exposed, and it would have been a very cold ordeal them staying there. All right. But then as we're going to read on, you're going to see that the Fair Havens were technically, even though they weren't fair at that point in time, they according to as Paul, said to them, it would have been a much fairer point, fairer haven for them, all right, than to try and, get to where they wanted to go to. Verse 13. And when the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, loosing thence, they sailed close by Crete. But not long after, there arose against it a tumultuous wind called Euroclydon, alright, which basically is I forgot the word, it escapes me. When you look it up, it's not tornado. There's a word, not hurricane. Escapes me, but you can look it up. And when the ship was caught and could not bear up into the wind, we let her drive, and running under a certain island which is called Claudia, saying it like a Brazilian, Claudia, we had Clauda. We had much work to come by the boat. All right. You see, let me read on. Which when they had taken up, they used helps undergirding the ship, and fearing lest the ship should fall into quicksand, strake sail, and were so driven. We being exceedingly tossed with a tempest. The next day they lightened the ship, and the third day we cast out with our own hands the tackling of the ship. And then neither sun nor stars in many days appeared, and no small tempest lay on us. All uh, all hope that we should be saved was then taken away. All right. So they became hopeless. Excuse me. Damn. And after long abstinence, Paul stood forth in the midst of them and said, Sirs, ye should have hearkened unto me, and not have loosed from Crete, and to have gained this harm and loss. And now I exhort you to be of good cheer, for there shall be no loss of any man's life among you, but of the ship. And there stood by me this night the angel of the Most High Power, whose I am, and whom I serve, saying, Fear not, Paul, thou must be brought before Caesar. And lo, lo, the Most High have given thee all them that sail with thee. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe in the Most High that it shall be even as it is told to me. Howbeit we must cast upon a certain island. But when the 14th night was come, as we were driven up and down in Adria, about the midnight, the shipmen deemed that they drew near some country, and sounded and found it 20 fathoms. And when they had gone a little further, they sounded again and found it 15 fathoms. Then, fearing lest we should have fallen upon rocks, they cast 4 anchors onto the stern, out of the stern, and wished for the day. And as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, when they had let down a boat into the sea under the colour, as though they would have cast anchors out of the foreship, Paul said to the centurion and to the soldiers, Except these abide in the ship, we cannot be saved. And then the soldiers cut off the ropes of the boat and let it fall off. And while the day was coming on, Paul besought them all to take meat, saying, This day is the 14th day of you tarried continued fasting, having taken nothing. Wherefore I pray you take some meat, for this is for your health. For there shall not an hair on your head fall. There shall not an hair fall from your head of any of you. Basically, they wouldn't be touched. And when they had thus spoken, he took bread and gave thanks to the Most High in the presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then were they all of good cheer, and they did also take some meat. And we were in all the ship 270 souls, so 267 persons aboard the ship. And when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and cast the wheat into the sea. And when it was day, they knew not the land, but they discovered a certain creek with a shore, into which they were minded, if it were possible, to thrust in the ship. And when they had taken up the anchors and committed themselves onto the sea, and loosed the rudder bands and hoisted up the mainsail to the wind, they made toward shore, and falling into a place where 2 seas met, they ran the ship aground, and the forepart stuck fast and remained unmovable, but the hinder part was broken with the violence of the waves. And the soldiers' counsel was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim out and escape. But the centurion, willing to save Paul, kept them from their purpose, and commanded that they should, which could swim, should cast themselves first into the sea and get to land, and the rest, some on boards and some on broken pieces of ship. And so it came to pass that they escaped all safe on land. All right. So with that, I pray you're edified to the next one. say shalom. Shalom.